Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Baldwin number 1041030I. This is a hinge, is what it is. Let's take it out of the package and get a closer look in terms of what exactly this part number is. Baldwin makes, as I'm sure you know, very good quality. Just looks beautiful. Primarily residential hardware, but lots of hardware that can be used in commercial applications as well. They would be known as a very high quality, high caliber, high end manufacturer of that hardware. Where Baldwin really excels, in my opinion, is in the fit and finish department. Absolutely beautiful. The fit and finish is just exceptional. Baldwin is my personal choice of high-end finished hardware. There are others that are of much greater exclusivity. There are those that stand on the shoulders of those extremely exclusive manufacturers. There are those people that, you know, it's made to order. Almost like everything's commissioned. There are manufacturers that I would say are a few notches below Baldwin. When it comes to a confluence of exceptional quality and fit and finish, availability, Baldwin for me is the only company to use. I do not like the manufacturers directly below them. They do not have the same build quality, and while their fit and finish is good, they don't have the same build quality. The caliber of the componentry, in my opinion, is inferior to Baldwin. The price obviously reflects that. Then there are those manufacturers who make material that is well beyond that in terms of exclusivity, in terms of design options. There will be things that you can get from quite high echelon manufacturers that you wouldn't get from Baldwin. But if you've not taken a tour through their catalog, you get lost in the process of figuring out which one you like more than the next. And I speak in particular of their Estates series of locks, interior, exterior locks, everything that they do under the Estates line, and they've been doing for decades, is all exceptional quality. The one rule to that is I'm not a fan of their hinges. And while the hinges are very beautiful, in my opinion, they're not intended for high volume application. I have had a chronic problem of the tips becoming unthreaded, then the pin creeping out over time. Now, this is on a high volume door. In that instance, in a high volume application, I would not use a Baldwin hinge, even though I would use it everywhere else. I would use a robust commercial grade hinge made by a company that does nothing but really hinges. No, it's not going to look this gorgeous, but by the same token, I think you'll have a better overall result. For residential applications that are inherently low volume, yeah, this hinge is going to be spectacular. These tips here, this is a button tip. Being Baldwin, of course, they can do steeple tip, urn tip, ball tip, naturally, the most common of the decorative tips. That's a button. Looks like a button on a coat. That's why they call it that. This is, of course, made of solid brass. And in the 030 finish, and 030 from Baldwin is their code for solid brass, meaning it's solid brass, pure brass. It's polished with a lacquer applied. Now, the 1041, all of that conspires to mean a very particular situation that we have on the hinge. What that means is a 1041 is a 4x4 hinge. Okay, they are It is a single hinge that's 4x4. The 1041 specifically means that. So your part number is going to change if you have a different hinge size. Part of the downside of Baldwin is learning all of their esoteric part numbers. The upside of Baldwin is once you have learned them, then you can work very well within the Baldwin environment. But if you wanted a 4.5, 4.5, or a 3.5, 3.5, it's not a 1041 anymore. That's my point. So the structure of the part number is 1041 dot finish. In this case, it's 030. And a trip down the available finishes of Baldwin products is a long conversation. You know, in a hinge, they're going to make a couple of dozen finishes, if not more. Then after that, you have the letter I, and that's literally going to tell us that this is a single hinge. Okay, this is just one hinge. When you buy one, literally you're going to get one in a box. They're not two in a box. They're not three in a box. This hinge is one in a box. You're going to get screws. Be mindful. That screw, while it's slightly magnetic, it could be a stainless screw. I don't know that it's brass, because brass would be thoroughly unmagnetic. Stainless has a small amount of magnetism when it's been machined. The point of the matter is you don't know what this screw is made of. What we know is that it's not steel. So be very careful when you are putting that screw in. You don't want to shear it. A lot of Baldwin material are absolutely brass screws. You want to pre-drill that hole properly so that you don't shear that screw off. You'll notice that this is AWS, all wood screws. If for some reason you need machine screws, that needs to be called out when you're ordering the material. That is a really important aspect. They are literally telling us how to pre-drill their holes. This comes with the hinge. So depending on the species or the type of wood that you're drilling into, either a hardwood or a softwood, the size of your drill bit's going to change. Okay, so be mindful of that. We'll get that scanned and tossed in below all of these different hinges that we have here. So the 1041 is that 4x4 hinge, sold as each. You can also order those as a non-removable pin. If you add NRP to the part number, you'll certainly get to that aspect. They can do those screws for metal applications. Those can be purchased separately. There is a way that we can supply those to you. And then just be mindful. You're buying a hinge sold as each. Baldwin, and actually I had said 3.5 inch earlier, and they certainly do sell those. They're going to have them in a square corner, in a radiused corner. They're going to have different tips. They're going to have, in addition to the one that I didn't mention was the acorn tip. So button tip, ball tip, urn tip, acorn tip, and steeple tip. Those are all available. Decorative tips and Baldwin hinges go hand in hand. They literally thread into the end of the hinge. Use thread locker when you're putting them in. Take it from me. Eventually that tip is going to come out and fall on the ground. If it's a high volume you store, just use some thread locker right away. Keep that decorative tip in there, because then the pin starts to move on you. And that's it. They're going to do 3.5, 3.5, 4x4, 4.5, 4.5, and 5x5. They're all going to be considered standard weight hinges. I don't see where they tell us the thickness of this leaf, but it should be 130 thousandths. I'm going to get my caliper and we're going to check that. I believe a 4x4 standard weight is 130 thousandths. Indeed, literally 0.13 inch. And what I mean when I say standard weight, there's residential weight, which is generally about 0.096. There's standard weight, which is generally about 134 thousandths, depending on the hinge size. There's heavyweight, which can be 180 or 190 thousandths. This is standard weight. So be mindful. They don't make a residential caliber hinge. Baldwin does not, in fact, make that. There is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Baldwin products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. As I said earlier, I am exceptionally partial to Baldwin for the aforementioned reasons, but for me, I'm a certified registered locksmith. I've spent decades in this industry. I enjoy the detailing aspect of the job. I appreciate very direct, very clear answers. I have called Baldwin. I have been sent to the lock department, and I was able to speak with a technical service rep at Baldwin who could tell me about the mortise lock bodies that they made in the 1970s. Why is that important? Well, being a certified registered locksmith, not that I make a living as a locksmith, but I appreciate the fine details of the aspect. I appreciate the ability to have a complicated piece of hardware in front of you and to be able to talk all about those individual pieces. Well, for this client, they literally had a lock from 1977. They needed a $3 spring to keep this lock that was decades old at that point, continuing to work. Called Baldwin, shot in the dark. Not only did I talk to somebody who knew about it, but this gentleman, back in 1976, was in the plant making the mortise locks. So I appreciate a locksmith, if you're a locksmith, being able to call Baldwin and get real technical support. If you're a consumer, being able to call Baldwin and say, oh, I've got a problem with this or that, and Baldwin being able to help you, that's great. That's one of the reasons that makes them great. But I don't call them up and need, easy level 1 help. I need detailed technical help. So they're able to communicate on all of those levels, and that's really the reason that I love them from a technical perspective. But I've personally used Baldwin hardware on my personal property, and with the exception of the hinges that I put on a high-volume door, everything else has been spectacular. Love it. You've got your high ends, you got your people that are below Baldwin. Great. As you like. But for me and my money, it's Baldwin all day long. Any questions on the 1041 in any finish, this is an 030, or any other Baldwin product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.